Okay, now we've removed the background and we've added some adjustments to color correct our image, and it's looking really good. We're going to do one more technique here, which is airbrushing or beauty retouching. And there is 100 different ways to do airbrushing in Photoshop, but I'm going to show you one technique that I learned that I really like a lot. And this is basically used to get rid of any imperfections in skin and to give a more stylized look. This photo that was taken is already kind of pixelated and doesn't look that great to begin with, and we're just trying to touch it up and make it look a little better. So let's go ahead and duplicate our adjustment layer by right clicking on it and selecting duplicate layer, and let's call this layer blur because we're going to apply a blur effect to this. Let's go ahead and hide the original layer because we don't need that. Make sure your blur layer is selected and then go to filter, blur, surface blur. And the way that I was shown this, the best way to do this is to max out your threshold and radius, and then go ahead and bring the threshold down until you can start to see some features of the face. So where we can start seeing the eyes and the nose and the mouth. And then bring the radius down until you can start making out some of those features. And we want it to be kind of blurry because actually what we're doing is we're going to use a mask to reveal the blurriness while keeping the details of the original layers underneath. So we want to see some detail, but we also want it to be blurry like this. So go ahead and select OK. Then go back to the adjustment layer once this is done rendering here. And we're going to duplicate that adjustment layer and apply another filter to it. So I'll click on the adjustment layer, right click, select duplicate, and we're going to call this filter, and we're going to move this above the blur layer. Okay, so it should look normal. Then go to filter, other, and select high pass. This is going to apply a high pass filter, which is basically going to just show us details. So if I zoom in here and I set it to 0, you can see there's no detail, and as I move it up we get more detail. And we want to do this just so we get a little bit of detail when we're bringing in the mask, but we don't want it very strong because we don't want it to be noticeable. So I'm just going to put it at 1 and hit OK. And then I want to blend this filter layer down into the blur layer. I'm not merging these, I'm just using the blending method here. So I'm going to select that where it says normal and click hard light. That makes the high pass filter a hard light. I see some of those details and wrinkles and different things like that. And now we've got these two layers, and I'm going to create a mask to reveal this underneath but still keep some of that detail from the original layer. So go ahead and group these two layers together, select filter, hold down shift and hit blur, and then hit Control G to group those. And now we want to add a mask. So I'm going to go down and hit add layer mask. And as you can see, the same thing's happening as before. It's a white layer mask, so everything's being applied. We want to change this to black and then color in with white the areas we want to see. So make sure that that is selected. Go up to Edit, Fill, and select black, and then hit OK. Now nothing is being applied, and you can see from the blurred image to this image how pixelated and messed up this image really looks. And we want to color in those areas and kind of smooth it out some. So make sure we have white selected in our foreground. Choose a soft brush. We can do a soft round, and 83 pixels is fine. We can always adjust that as we go along if we want finer detail. And we want to change the opacity. If we set this to 100, it's going to be very noticeable as we begin coloring in. And we don't want it to be too noticeable because these types of effects, you want to adjust these layers, but you don't want people to actually notice it. So maybe let's try 50% and see how that looks. And I'm just going to start here at the forehead and start coloring this in. And as I do, you see some of those wrinkles and things go away. And I'll do one side of the face here. Okay, so if you compare the left side of the face to the right side of the face, it looks a lot smoother. And that is that's airbrushing at its very basics. That's pretty much what's done. Now there are different techniques and different things that you can do, and we could change the opacity. Maybe this is a little too strong and we don't want it to be this noticeable, but I'm just going to stick with this for now so you can see the differences. And all that's happening is we have our blurred high pass filter on top, and we're coloring in the areas that we want to see. Now when I went over the nose, that did get a little too much, so I'm going to undo that real quick. That was a little too much. I'm going to stay away from that line so it doesn't blend that nose line in, because that did look a little too strong, but that looks a lot better. Maybe do the neck so the neck isn't so obvious. And if I was spending more time on this, I'd probably color correct the neck a little bit so it doesn't look so white. It looks like the way the light's hitting my neck, it's a little bright there too, but that's okay. You can always spend as much time as you want on these things and get them just right. Now I could also do this with the shirt. Sometimes it works good, sometimes it's not so great. See, this shirt is a little pixelated too, and I could do the same thing, but sometimes when this happens you actually end up getting rid of some of the wrinkles. Maybe bring the opacity down a little bit on this. Let me do those. So drop the opacity down to 28, and I can color this in. It'll help blend in some of that pixelation that's going on. And this was a low quality photo to begin with, which I wanted to choose purposely to try to show you how to touch these up a little bit on your own. And the thing about Photoshop is there's a million ways to do a million different things. We can't go through all of them, but hopefully this gives you some ideas of how masks and layers work and some of the adjustment features. But I'm just kind of coloring these in a little bit, trying to stay away from any of the hard edges and wrinkles because I don't want to smooth those out too much and make it look bad. Alright, but that's not too bad. You know, I could maybe do the arm a little bit if I wanted to, just touch up some of those hard spots. Alright, so I can zoom out, and now you can see the photo looks a lot cleaner. I don't have as bad as wrinkles or anything. This might be a little too much. I could always go to that group and turn down the opacity and blend that a little bit this way. So this is nothing. This is full, and you can see it really gets rid of some of those defining wrinkles and highlights. So maybe I find a nice comfortable medium. Maybe I can do like 50% or 60% looks pretty good, and that's a nice happy medium between the two. So that is how you do a little bit of beauty retouching and airbrushing to kind of soften up your image and get rid of some of those imperfections, pixelation, wrinkles, and what have you.